Our first reader tonight is Edward Belfar. And Ed has been coming to the show for some time, so I'm really excited to finally hear from him. He's the author of a collection of short stories called Wanderers, which was published by Stephen F. Austin State University Press in 2012. His fiction has also appeared in numerous literary journals, including Shenandoah, the Baltimore Review, Potpourri, Confrontation, Natural Bridge, and Tampa Review. He lives in Maryland with his wife, Kathleen, and his corgi. Do you go French pronunciation on this, Ed? Pepin?
Not really. Pepin.
Pepin? Okay. And works as a writer and editor. And for this reading, Ed has asked that I share my screen this painting by Francisco Goya called The Drowning Dog. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to do this because this painting is what inspired the piece Ed is reading tonight. So as soon as that works, Ed, you should be able to take it away.
Okay, sure. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Yeah, so this was published recently in the EdTGIReading review, and it was based on the painting. And so I'm going to read this, and then because it's short, I'll read the beginning of a story from Wanderers also after this. Okay, so the story is called The Drowning Dog. Though his wife, Lori, had died some 7 months before, Jeffrey Rosen still spoke with her regularly. In hospice during the last weeks of her life, he would sit by her bed while she slept and speak to her aloud, for he felt certain that she could hear him. The closer she drew to the end, the more she slept, and the more voluble he became. Less confident after her death that she still heard him, he kept up the conversation anyway, silently in public, sometimes still audibly when at home alone, in the modest gray-shingled Cape Cod house in Tacoma Park, Maryland, in which they had lived together for more than 30 years. Most often he talked to her at night and when drunk, and because his sleep had grown fitful when it came at all, and he drank more than ever, those conversations had become quite frequent of late. He sat now on his living room sofa, a squared-off, dark blue, mid-century modern piece that he and Lori had purchased early in their marriage. A near-empty bottle of Chianti and a half-full wine glass stood on the coffee table in front of him. On the wall opposite the sofa hung a reproduction of Goya's The Drowning Dog that Lori had bought from the gift shop at the Prado. He and Lori had quarreled over the print of the little black dog, depicted in profile, sinking, already neck deep, into a vast ochre void. The dog's expression, one of fear, bewilderment, and hopelessness, why this, why now, why does no one hear me, unnerved him. The more I drink, the harder it is for me to get drunk, said Jeffrey, his eyes fixed upon the drowning dog as if he were addressing it. So I have to drink more every night. I hate to see you this way, he imagined Lori answering. I hate to see myself this way, but I have an excuse tonight. I have to fortify myself for visiting Mom. I'm driving up to New York again this weekend. She's not doing well. The image came to him unbidden, as it had countless times before, of his mother alone in the den of a house that in the 2 months since she had become a widow must have come to seem to her as vast and empty as an airport hangar. Feeling lightheaded, she would have set her knitting down upon the table. Maybe she would have lost that second or two during which she fell, and then have wondered how she came to be lying prone on the carpet, unable to rise, the entire right side of her body having suddenly gone inert. She would, like the drowning dog, have sensed that something catastrophic that she did not as yet understand was happening to her. Again, you're going? What about that brother of yours? He's in Manhattan, an hour away from her. Rob's still doing his part. He visits her once or twice a year, whether he needs to or not. It's so unfair. If life were fair, you would still be here. He drained his glass and then refilled it, pouring into it all that remained in the bottle. And that poor little dog wouldn't be drowning. God, I've always hated that painting. One of these days I'm going to take it down and put it in the basement. You can do as you like with it. You don't have to please me anymore. Finishing the Chianti, Jeffrey put the glass down on the table and lay down upon the sofa. Poor dog. Do you ever have any regrets? Regrets? About what? I don't know, not having kids. It would have been nice, maybe. When I picture growing old now, it seems so desolate. I would have liked very much to have a family. True, you wanted one much more than I did. I'm sorry. There's no reason to be sorry. I hope you don't have regrets, I mean. I know I wasn't the easiest person to live with. It was good, though, mostly, wasn't it? Okay, at least. If you have to ask now, I wonder whether you ever knew me at all. Was I the sort of person who would have stayed married for 31 years to a man I didn't respect and love dearly? How would she have posed that question? Irritably, tearfully? The uncertainty made him fearful. He realized then that he was weeping, and he furtively wiped his eyes, as though wishing to conceal his tears from her. Would there soon come a day when he would no longer hear her at all? He saw her fading, pulling away. No. So now that you have your answer, you can let me go. I'm dead. I have no existence outside your imaginings. Stop wasting your breath talking to a shadow you've conjured up to keep you company at night. You have responsibilities. There are living people who need you. Your mother, for one. You're right, of course, but no buts. Of course I'm right. I always was. Not always, boss, but more often than not. Goodbye. Good night. I love you. Goodbye. I'm dead. The dead can't love you back. They speak very bluntly, the dead, as ever. He glanced over again at the drowning dog, forever sinking into oblivion in mute despair. Yes, he resolved as he closed his eyes, he would consign the dog to the basement tomorrow. He felt much too tired to bother now, so tired that he dared hope he might get some sleep. Thank you. Okay. And thank you. And the second thing I'm going to read is the beginning of a story from Wanderers, the opening cover. And this story is called Something Small, and it's one of several stories in the book that is set in Kenya. And so it doesn't, animals don't really figure in this, though this is, Kenya's known for that. And which is where I saw, I think, the most amazing animal I've ever seen, which was a foot-long millipede. I have to show you a picture of that sometime. Anyway, this is called Something Small. The mutton, the kidneys, and the goat ribs all had been eaten long ago, but the coals in the grills still sputtered and hissed, and the smoke spiraled toward the sapphire sky. A score of children and a few quite tame German shepherds, all yelping with delight, gamboled about an expansive yard bounded by white stone walls lined with crimson bougainvillea. Less energetic, the adults settled into lawn chairs beneath the shade of two large jacaranda trees that were in full purple bloom and formed two circles segregated by sex. The women ate chocolate cake and ice cream and talked of weddings and baptisms, of Christine Couria's engagement to John Kamau and Mary and Patrick Karanja's acrimonious divorce. The men, swigging from bottles of Tusker beer, spoke of politics, business, legal affairs, and the murky places where the three intersected. Maina Waithaka, the host, crowed about how he had prevailed in a lawsuit against an estranged business partner. Tall and lithe, Maina had the build and the face, long, narrow, bony, and dusky, with fierce black eyes, of a Maasai warrior, but the dress and attitude of the prosperous Kikuyu that he was. Clad in charcoal trousers and a slate blue shirt with black stripes that was crisply pressed but open at the collar, he sprawled lazily in his chair, grinning with satisfaction as he recounted the tale. Luckily for me, he said, the judge assigned to the case was Humphrey Wanania, Dad's old golfing buddy. Well, I just had to invite Humphrey out to Windsor to play a round or two for old time's sake. It was the polite thing to do, after all. I told him if he beat me, I would cater his daughter's wedding at no cost to him. I let him win, of course. It cost me a small fortune. It was well worth it. It's the price of doing business in Kenya. If I had lost that lawsuit, I would have been ruined. Another triumph for our justice system, huffed Mwangi Wasira. You don't like my story, Kabiro. Maybe you'd like to tell your own, the one about how they stole your shoe shop downtown. Mwangi scowled. It's something I prefer to forget, and I'm sure everyone here has heard about it by now. He was a short, thick-set, very dark man, darker even than Mina, who had christened him Kabiro or Little Soot. Like Soot, the sobriquet which Mwangi despised had stuck. He wore a brown and white flannel shirt with a frayed collar, and his right knee showed through a horizontal gash in his baggy navy blue trousers. With his cloudy, puffy eyes, his bald crown, and his hair turning to gray at the temples, he looked much older than his 34 years. Not everyone. Paul hasn't heard the story. I don't think Stephen has either. Eagerly, the men leaned forward in their chairs, but Mwangi did not speak. It was Mina who broke the uneasy silence. It happened when Moy was still in charge. Some Kanu MP, one of Moy's cronies, came along with a phony deed, an eviction order, and a bunch of goons and stole the building right out from the landlord. They ransacked Kabiro's shop, chased him and all the other tenants out, and then changed the locks. The landlord went to court and got an order from the judge telling Moy's friend to let the tenants back in and vacate the premises. All well and good, except that the landlord couldn't get the police to enforce the court order. They still haven't, have they, Kabiro? No. Rising from his chair, a tad unsteadily, the spidery Paul Ahania proclaimed to a chorus of laughter, "We've created a new species here in Kenya, Homo corruptus." He and Mina clinked beer bottles. Mwangi snorted in disgust. Kabiro doesn't like our jokes. He's an honest man, said Mina. As honest as most, Mwangi answered coldly, and more than some people here. The laughter suddenly ceased. An honest man, the only honest man in all of Kenya, but our honest Kabiro has 3 mouths to feed and another on the way. Even working 2 jobs, it's a stretch to make ends meet without a little chai on the side. I bet even honest Kabiro knows how to work the tourists at the airport. He does a little favor here, turns a blind eye there, and when the grateful traveler slips him something small, he doesn't turn it down. You'd lose your bet, Mwangi answered. Rising abruptly, he strode off toward the women's circle. Muthoni, he whispered to his wife, we need to be on our way soon. I have to go to work. Muthoni nodded. A petite woman, 8 months pregnant, with a frame that appeared barely able to support her protruding belly. She had high cheekbones, a chin that came to a point, and a close-cropped masculine haircut that accentuated the angularity of her features. She had the haggard look of one who had not slept the night before. Upon her lap sat plump little Koi, teary-eyed and sobbing, her pink party dress stained with grass and dirt. Muthoni was dabbing at the torn and bloody skin of Koi's right elbow with a wet handkerchief. Kneeling before the child, Mwangi asked, what happened, my little angel? Did a grasshopper trip you? I fall down, answered the 3-year-old sadly. You fall down? Well, it's a good thing you didn't fall up. Hoisting the girl high into the air, he whirled her about. In a moment, she had forgotten all about her recent misfortune and was laughing and shrieking with joy. Maino Waithaka then escorted Mwangi, Muthoni, and little Koi around to the front of the house, a massive gray stone structure arrayed with pilasters, balconies, turrets, and heavy russet doors with black iron handles and knockers. You know, I like to kid you, Kabiro, said Mina, draping his arm over Mwangi's shoulders. But I don't mean anything by it. We can kid one another because we're family. Mina, who sometimes suffered from sudden attacks of sentimentality when drunk, now launched into a long, disjointed soliloquy on the joys of family life, a topic on which he had acquired much first-hand knowledge, having sired 3 children by his wife and 3 more by his mistress. "You're a lucky man, Kabiro," he said. "You have a wonderful wife and such a beautiful little girl." Still hugging the squirming Wangi to his side, he began to weep. The watchman, who upon seeing the party approaching had sprung from his stool at the bottom of the driveway and opened the front gate, discreetly averted his eyes. And, stop there. Story goes on. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. That was wonderful. It's so good to finally hear your work too. Having gotten to know you a little bit in the past few months. I think what really struck me, particularly about the first piece, I think obviously there's a different experience to hearing something inspired by a piece of art and being able to look at that piece of art at the same time. Kind of gives a real sort of third or possibly fourth dimension to something. But also the thing that struck me the most about it is that the way that your relationship with someone does not end when they die. Mm-hmm. And that the internalized version of them, or whatever it is this sort of continued dialogue, and this idea of treating that dialogue as a literal dialogue until the point at which he seems ready to say goodbye. Although obviously putting the painting down in the basement tomorrow does not necessarily mean he's going to, right? It's just for tonight, he's reached a resolution and he's kind of done. I think that really highlights an experience of grief in a unique way. And also just that painting I had never seen before, and goodness, what a desperately sad image, to some extent. I mean, it does tell this story sort of this hopeless sinking, that sometimes, especially as we lose people, that the passage of time can feel like that, like there's nothing we can do about it and it's just slipping away. But I think these, I always say this, I think I always say this, I say it in my personal life at least, but these emotions are nothing to shy away from. These are just as valid human experiences as joy and gratitude and all the things that the wellness and positivity industry would have us get into. But I think that, what's wonderful about your piece is that it introduced me to this piece of art and gave it this whole new significance, but it sort of interpolated for me what it could mean and what it could mean to a person in a given situation. So I really thought that was just brilliant. And then I loved in the second one just the sense of desperate humor in a way as well. I would love to read more. So thank you so much for coming. And your book is available. Noli, I think, just put a link in the chat, so people go and check it out. And then I also wanted to say, I loved hearing you read too, because normally you're so soft spoken, and hearing you sort of own your material and just put it out there, like it was really wonderful to just hear you kind of. I mean, you seem like a pretty quiet guy, so I'm going to assume for you that was letting it rip. Anyways, thank you so much, Ed. Really wonderful to finally hear you.
Thank you.